it's really easy to build an amazing prototype. Maintaining it and scaling it is very, very difficult.
A lot of people believe that we should be able to slap an LLM onto one of these native solutions and just call it a day.
If it's not AI related, you don't get budget. So what do people do? They just slap AI on top of everything and they call it AI.
That AI tool is the AI strategy. That's not your strategy.
Can you tell me an exact risk at which AI agents bring? And nobody can tell me an answer to this.
Hello, welcome to another episode of AI Security Podcast. We have an interesting topic today. I think, Caleb, to start off with.
Every episode's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she'll be to put that in. But yes, it is an interesting topic because AI is evolving. Actually, can we ever catch up with AI? It's almost like the last episode sounds like, oh, now that was interesting. As like the Apple announcement. This is the most innovative Apple product ever.
And we've done it by changing the edges of the iPhone to the exact same edges of the iPhone 2 years ago.
Yeah. So this is the most interesting episode until the next episode comes out.
Okay, got it.
So that's where we're going with. But to set some context, we were talking about the CodeMender announcement, and to give some context to the audience. DeepMind recently released their AI agent for code security. They call it CodeMender. It's basically they're calling it as like their version of, hey, improve your code security automatically, installing patches to new software vulnerabilities. It basically is for people who are from an application security world, it's that whole SCA, dependency, open source library, that traditional conversation. Before I share my thoughts, love to hear what your thoughts are on this, Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, first, I guess we should probably explain a little bit about what it is. What DeepMind has released is not just a sort of static analysis of fine SQL injection in your code, although it does do this. It does go and say, hey, this looks like SQL injection. Let's propose that this needs to be fixed. But it also does two other stages, which is pretty interesting, which is first, it does sort of a root cause analysis. It doesn't just say, hey, I see SQL injection here, but it may say, hey, like I noticed that the root cause of this is that you are not just ad hocing all your SQL statements, but that it's all coming from this single library. And so we should do two things. We should fix your SQL injection problem here, and we should also add input validation area coming from like this library, right? So it's much more comprehensive than just identifying a single issue. It looks for root cause issues. And not only does it do that, it will always offer, of course, the ability to patch it. It will create the patch for you, and it will implement that patch for you, and it will validate and test to see whether the patch was correctly implemented. So it does all of these things. This is no longer the sneaks, fortifies of the 90s generation, 2000s generation. This is now the thing at which we have all been waiting for a long time to see. And it's fascinating. And obviously we see a lot of open source projects and initiatives that are sort of focusing on doing these kinds of things. Obviously we have lots of products that propose patches that you can just integrate, but not many that automatically do it, validate it, and test it.
100%. The only thing I'll add is, and I guess to what you said, it's almost like it's an AI agent for AppSec, application security in a way. But that first layer, to be fair, would that be a fair?
No, I think it's software. It's software vulnerabilities, not just application level vulnerabilities. So it's buffer overflows, it's app level issues, all of those are included.
Buffer overflow and stuff as well. Because I didn't read that part, but I think it's because I read the whole fuzz. It can do fuzzing as well. It can do dynamic scannings. Anyway, source code debugger. But what was interesting for me outside of the whole context that it is an interesting agent to have. It kind of has sprung up the conversation around the native solutions from your providers now, where if your LLM providers start giving you capabilities to start having, say, in this case, a software security AI agent, which you can plug and play and can reason with the non-trivial, or can even write patches from what I read on that as well. It can write patches. It opens up the conversation for that build versus buy debate that we've had traditionally in security for a long time, where a lot of the conversations that I've had with a lot of people in that advisory that I run with Tech Riot is a lot of people believe that we should be able to slap an LLM onto one of these native solutions and just call it a day. And that's our replacement of a SOC or a application security or a vulnerability management or whatever reasoning you want to put that in there, because these days our LLMs are smart. The cost is reducing of token. Well, not completely, but it is heading in that direction where the cost would be considerably lower. What are your thoughts? And considering you actually work with a lot of people who are building all these AI security companies out there, how do you kind of talk about the build versus buy in this particular conversation when everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid from Sam Altman that hey, it's so simple. I have an AI agent builder for you guys. Go build your own agents. You guys got this. What are your thoughts on this particular topic of build versus buy when it comes to the whole AI landscape?
Okay, so switching off the topic of the code analysis perspective, but just in general, I think the build versus buy is going to be a thing that happens in every single phase of sort of new technology. And again, like I think many listeners have probably already remember how I make a lot of analogies to cloud. And like everyone at the beginning of cloud, when they were doing it, all the big enterprises were like, well, we're just going to host our own internal version of cloud, right? We're going to do, like they kind of went through this process of doing it and managing it themselves. And I think with AI, you're going to see the exact same thing, which is that everyone is going to say, oh, well, I can just connect MCP to my whatever X project or technology, Visual Studio, and then I can just do this myself, which they are not wrong. You can absolutely do this yourself. And you can go and just take our source code example. I can absolutely just connect an LLM to Visual Studio, whatever AI agent I say, and say, look for SQL injection, identify it, and then it will find it. And by the way, it will look pretty good. Like you're going to look through this and you're like, oh, this is pretty accurate. Like 80 to 90% probably of what you find is going to be pretty good. And then what's going to happen is then you're going to start running into, oh, let's try a bigger code base. Let's try a more complex code base. And then you start noticing the problems. Oh, well, there's a lot of false positives here. Oh, there's a lot of false negatives here. Oh, well, it found if I run it once and I find these vulns and I run it again, it finds a different set of vulns. And if I run it again, it runs a different set of vulns. Okay, so there's no consistency. Like, well, I should be able to run a code vulnerability scanner 50 times and get 50 results on the same code base, assuming it doesn't change the code base. But that is not what happens when you do this with AI.
Out of the box,
and I think that this is the problem that ends up coming to play is it's really easy to build an amazing prototype. Like you can build an amazing prototype, an amazing V1 almost. I wouldn't even call it V, let's just call it prototype. And it's phenomenal. And there's some just crazy things you can do with it. And it's so easy. And then what you start doing is you start building scaffolding around this to make it into a real product, right? And then what happens is then you start changing your data sources. In our example, it's different code bases and then bigger. And then you start running into, oh, wait a minute, a little tweak here, a little tweak there. And then you start running into, well, if I run it more than once, I don't get the same results. And then you start running in this consistency problem. And then you start realizing that this is not production quality. And all over this time, the amount of time that it takes you to learn about AI, to figure out the tweaking, and then figure out the data problem, and then figure out the consistency problem, and then figure out the scalability. And then, by the way, when you start running into real problems, then you start realizing there's a cost. Like actually AI is really expensive. And then that's right before you do a V1 and you're like, this is not production. That will take you 18 months to go through this period of figuring all of this out. And so I think what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of people who are going to say, we can do this, because every single CEO and executive is going to be like, you do something with AI. So every internal team is going to build their own AI versions of every vendor product, right? And then they're all going to say, and vendors are going to go in a dip. They're going to not, their sales will get lost, revenue will go down. People are trying to do, oh, I can just do this with AI.
Yeah.
And then it will come back in force because people will figure out, oh, just like every other piece of damn software, building it is easy in a prototype. Maintaining it and scaling it is very, very difficult.
That's where the magic is.
Yeah. And so, like, look, I think with all of these products, you see the same thing. Building software is not easy. And AI is nowhere near, at least its current capability of being able to do that by itself. Now, like in 5 years, do I think AI can iterate on itself to understand its own consistency problems, understand its own scalability problems, understand its own maintenance and feature update problems in software? Plausible, right? Like it's plausible that in 5 years, maybe the problem might be solvable, but today definitely not.
So I'll add another flavor to this. Every time I've had the build versus buy conversation, and I try and explain what's involved to what you said, right? One side of the argument is, hey, I understand that I have an internal data lake that my organization has built because we've been doing AI ML for a long time. I can start pumping my security logs into my data lake, insert whatever provider or cloud provider, non-cloud provider. They give me security capability as well, but I should be able to just extend. So I could potentially replace my SIEM with a data lake and start putting my detection into this data lake, and that becomes my quote unquote detection engineering. I could also take that step further and go, I have the ability to understand SQL injection cases that are relevant for myself personally, based on all the pen tests that I've had for the past 10, 15 years. I've got the documentation. I feed that into a knowledge source that becomes my internal knowledge source, or RAG, if that you hook up with a RAG and an LLM. And maybe that becomes my source of at least an understanding of everything I've had so far with the right context of the application, to be able to identify what's happened in the past. And then my pen testing is that supplementary thing that each year Ashish or whoever is a pen testing company comes in, goes through business logic flaws and finds out all these true positives for me, and I keep feeding that to my LLM. And so I guess that is one side. The other is where a lot of people have gone down the path of you're almost looking at, and I agree to what you said, you're almost becoming a data scientist at this point in time if you're dealing with data lakes and configurations and RAG. How do I even normalize my data? How do I build a data pipeline? It's not a cybersecurity conversation at that point in time. You're talking data architecture, data flow, very different kind of skill sets. Unless people start hiring for data specialized people in their teams, the build versus buy, in my mind, it's a half-baked thought, because you don't even have even if you have the pipeline, you may not have the right people who understand how do I transform this existing data into a cybersecurity problem, because they don't have the data person may not have a cybersecurity context. You don't have the data context, so you have to work with them to even make this into something important. But even if you make this, and I kind of feel we're on this kind of, even if you will get to a point where AI model is improving itself, we would probably be at a place where would let's just say a financial organization start building an AI product, because that's where you're heading. If you start building this, you're
You have
basically, isn't it like you're almost building a AI product inside your organization for security, which I do not see why let's just say, I don't know, Bank of America spends the engineering money, builds the AI product inside. They're not going to put that in their revenue thing. Like, why are we turning into, I don't know, a cybersecurity company? Or maybe they do.
Well, first, okay, so there's a lot here to deconstruct. So first of all, let's take any decent sized enterprise. Bank of America is sort of what you brought up. Number one, you are right that you need a lot more in this AI world. You need a lot more quote unquote specialists, right?
Yep.
People who understand data pipelines, people who understand machine learning, people who understand sort of a lot of these avenues, which by the way, they're in any Bank of America included, they had lots of investment in these things prior to AI and
Yep.
transformers, right? So tons of people are already well embedded in this. Now, because of AI, we're obviously seeing an explosion of more and more people getting involved in this space. And we are absolutely going to have, data engineers, data scientists. These people are all going to be almost a part of software engineering, right? In fact, if you're a software engineer in the next 5 years that you don't understand data science and you don't understand data ingestion and pipelining, then you are probably not a very good software engineer, would be my guess.
Yeah.
So this is going to become a well-adopted part of your culture. Inside of Bank of America, absolutely, they are building their own versions. They need to build pipelines. They need to build this because they have tons and tons of confidential data inside of Bank of America that they want to make use of. And so they are going to ingest that data, understand that data, and build products off of that data. And whether that comes out of obviously products that consumers use or internal processes that the bank uses, or, to your point, the security team itself will want to be able to create things off of that data. And for sure, the one thing that is amazing about AI is the ability for us to create software applications quickly that allow us to prototype or build something is really awesome. So we will see the cybersecurity team in Bank of America. I'm for sure they're already been doing this, but the Bank of America's cybersecurity team is already building their own V1s of cybersecurity type prototypes and products that work off of their current data. The big question is, are they building entire brand new SIEMs? Are they building entire, static code analyzers? Are they building products in order to replace vendors, or are they building more proprietary, unique products that are focused on the value propositions or problems that are unique to Bank of America? Is a good question.
Actually, we should call out. I have no idea if that's what Bank of America is doing. In case they want to come and talk, we're more than happy to welcome them.
Purely just saying, Bank of America as an example.
Yeah,
I can tell you from my experience at Capital One, all of that.
Yeah, fair, sure. I mean, so there is that, but I think, and I agree with you, because if you were to take a step back, the build versus buy, to what you said, has been a conversation that's been there for ages, just in tech in general, not just cybersecurity. And no matter how far you go cloud, on-premise, they've all had this conversation with vendors specifically. Why am I buying a vendor when I can build this internally because I have an engineering team or whatever? I think it's worthwhile calling out that as we have kind of gone into the space with AI and people have been building data lakes, there is a breadth of organizations who are, like, I've spoken to a few scale-ups who probably have a very small team, and the choice they're making, to what you said, because execs are saying, hey, we need more AI, the choice they have to make is, should I hire a new person for 200, 300K, or should I just replace that with a product which is probably half the price and it's kind of there? So I use my existing team, give them more AI capability, and use that as a way to fast forward, because they probably never worked on building an ML pipeline or never got the funding for it. There is that side as well, which I want to call out. But focusing just on the ones which have the means and the capability, the budget, already had the pipeline, even in that context, to what you said as well, and a lot of conversations I've had, a lot of people are still only building the augmentation layer. Like, you can't have threat intel. You can subscribe to a threat intel, but you're not going to build a threat intel yourself. That just almost sounds silly, that you're going to build your own popular threat intel service.
What's funny is, oddly enough, I used to think that too. And then, one of our portfolio companies in my fund, we were like, oh, let's go. We need threat intel to build the product. So they went and then signed up for the best of threat intel, and then learned that none of this, all of it is pointless. It's terrible.
Really?
It's terrible. It's really
bad. Wait, is it pre-AI version or in general?
No. Like today.
Oh.
Yeah, like they ended up having to build their own threat intel because and actually then they started finding, because, obviously all these startups, they all kind of, these AI guys, they all like to talk to each other, right?
Yeah,
and they read about all this. And they started finding out, like, actually everyone else is complaining about the same thing. Is actually like, and I'm only calling this specific example just because it is a true example. Actually, when you find out, threat intel today is not very good. at all. And so there
Like
are
the
people
entire
who are like, oh, we
industry.
got to build our own version of threat intel, which they did, right? Like they actually created their own threat intel service
Yeah,
because like it was one of the biggest pains. And actually what's really interesting about AI, the reason you bring up threat intel also happens to be coinciding, is that AI requires knowledge and
yeah,
context,
yeah.
right? And so threat intel for cybersecurity companies becomes really highly more relevant in an AI world because you need this understanding of what are the attackers doing, what's
That's right.
going on in the ecosystem, like how are the economics working, all this other stuff. And you need that in the right format and the right capability and delivery mechanism to be relevant to security AI systems to make decisions on. And
Yeah.
so like threat intel actually kind of rises to the top as one of the first most relevant and required thing for AI security companies.
So is it easy to build a threat intel?
I would say no, but I would say it's easier than it was before AI. So the aspect of being able to, going back to this buy versus build,
Yeah.
vendors themselves, I would say they can now create their own version of threat intel, more custom tailored for their solutions and what they need in an easier way than they could have ever done it before AI.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, because, and maybe correct me if I'm going down the wrong path, because threat intel in general has been more like news. You get everything. It's not like you get only cloud,
Correct.
you get only AppSec, you get only whatever, insert problem area here. You get the whole lot because that's understandable from the licensing model they would have had. They don't want you to piece by piece. They want you the entire thing, or you don't get nothing.
Yeah, and it is a conglomerate of everything by the way, at whatever level of detail at which they have decided to format it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So they've normalized it with their own whatever they think is the right way to do it. Actually, because there was, I mean, people would assume that I can just plug into CV and build my own. But coming back to the whole build versus buy, before I go down that rabbit hole of threat intel, well, I guess where I was going with that was the point being, if people are thinking of building this, yes, the data capability is required in your organization. You may not be the Bank of America, Capital One, whatever, but even if you are a scale up trying to do this yourself and go, I may be, I don't know, the Netflix engineering team. Again, this is not an example from Netflix, but just saying you're just someone who is capable, has engineering capability in your team to do this. You would still need to plug this gap of data somehow to be able to build it into a product and then
Yeah,
maintain it and hopefully have redundancy that the person never leaves who figured
yeah.
this out.
Well, I mean, that's obviously the problem with any product is who's going to maintain it
Yeah.
and scale it and keep it up to date with features. Very rarely can you go and like you see this everywhere. I saw this at all my companies. There is this first of all, let's talk about in build versus buy, and I'll segue into this conversation in just a minute
Yep.
about the perverse incentive structure. So we
Mm.
have to address this, which is today the incentive structure is that every company believes they need to be an AI company because that is where the money is going.
Yep.
So if I want money, I need to be AI. And so CEOs and exec staff from down tell all the company if it's not AI related, you don't get budget,
That's right.
right?
Yep. That's
So
the case.
what do people do? They just slap AI on top of everything and they call it AI, right? AI finance, AI marketing, AI people, AI security, right? Like everything gets AI because that's how you get budgeting. And by
Yep.
the way, then from those leaders of those teams, that message also conveys, hey, we need to do more with less by using AI.
Yeah.
And we will recognize, and we will fund things of where you are doing AI related work. You need
Yep.
to be up to speed and up to date. And if you can't learn about AI or understand or prove that you're doing something with AI, then you're getting fired,
Yep.
right? Like that is, let's just say that is the way right now all companies, quote unquote, all companies
The
are
money.
acting.
Yep.
Okay, so now look at the security team. So let's just take the security team. The security team is clearly going to go, well, fuck yeah. That's that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick any project that I can and I'm going to do AI on it. I'm going to make slides. I'm going to show prototypes and then I'm going to get promoted and I'm going to get funded. right? And even on the CISO side, the CISO can now go to the exec staff and say, look at the 5 AI internal security projects. And what we're doing is we're saving money by replacing X vendor and Y vendor by building, and our team internally is being AIified, right? So now our teams are AI experts. And so these guys are going to go in and plug MCP, and they're going to plug it into your SIEM, and they're going to say, look, we have an AIified detection program, an AI SOC, and we can do all these. We don't have to do any of these vendors anymore. And look, and then by the way, what's going to happen is the CISO is going to get more budget. The CEO is going to go, oh, that's awesome. I'll actually give you more budget for more headcount so that you can build more AI things. And then so this is going to all happen internally, and everyone is rising up that ladder. And then so what you're going to see, of course, going back to our internal version of it, is they're going to go through, they're going to build amazing progress in their prototype, V1s, V2 prototypes, and it's going to look great. They're going to say no to vendors. They're going to say, we can just MCP this, we can AI this, blah, 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 blah. And then they're going to spend their money on like AI fundamentals. Like, hey, we're going to become AI engineers now. We want, pipelines. We want LangChain. We want we're going to pay for that, but we're not paying for anything else. And then over a period of a year, they're going to put this thing out. They're going to deploy it. They're going to continue to get budget for it. And they're going to find out the shit just doesn't work. and by the way, it just doesn't. And in the meantime, a lot of these vendors, and I think this is my prediction, is a lot of these vendors, we're going to see a dip in this stuff because people are all going to say they can AI it. But then after they actually produce things, which we've seen even internally, on the very early adopters of this stuff, like we have a couple companies in the portfolio where they talk to these design partners, and at the very beginning, and the design partners are like, no, we can just do this.
I see where you're going.
And then they came back like a year later, and they said, we can't do this. So and they are the most cutting edge. Like they are the ones that are doing it. And actually then we get into their environment, right? This is the funny part. We get into their environment, and then not only do we see what they're doing, right? And the things that they've built, but we can see like it is flat out failing. Like it's not even great at all. Like the progress that we've made. And the thing is, like, this is the same story that was played out, I think, everywhere else, right? Web application development, cloud, like it's just the same damn pattern. And you're going to see this exact same thing play out. And then and what really kind of worries me, just as a higher, maybe economic scale, is that bubble is going to pop. That AI bubble is going to pop, right? Where we are seeing like, hey, like there's a lot of work that's going into this, and you can't just tell everyone to learn about AI and then see all these things and invest money, and somehow that's all going to work, because you're seeing it already that it's not. That these products are, and even if they do, by the way, Ashish, get it to a point where it can be productized, they're finding out the costs are really high. And so there is this thing coming down the road here where that will go down, and the AI money will go down with it. And then the economy will go down with it. But like in our internal world, we're seeing that security thing play, right? We're seeing that already happening in these rotations.
I think I was the same. So many people that I spoke to who wanted to build this on their own, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I did want to have this conversation on this as well, because a lot of them a year later or a year and a half later, because when I spoke to them a year ago, it was almost like everyone was so confident that they can build this themselves. And rightly so. It does give you that feeling that you can do this on your own. When you spend enough time on it, just like anything else, this is not the only thing you're working on. Right? You can give an incentive. And I love the example that you gave of that, how it trickles from the top to the top down, where, hey, I need to AIify to get the funding. And it goes all the way to the point that leaders would start putting initiatives or quote unquote AI initiatives as an individual contributor to go, hey, by the way, security engineer, security architect, if you use AI, that's going to be 1 extra point for your promotion next year. And suddenly now you're going, people are figuring out, it's like with the vibe coding episode we did, the AI just figures out a way to game the system. So all the humans are going to find a way to game the system, because everyone wants a promotion. Everyone wants to be like getting that extra salary bump or whatever. And no one wants you fired, because we've been running a few workshops with the advisory, and I was so surprised. a lot of people actually showed worry that they're going to lose their job. That's why they were attending the workshop. The only reason they want to attend the workshop of, hey, how do I enable my team to use more AI? How do I enable AI integration into application? Literally because they're worried they're going to lose their jobs because of all the layoffs happening everywhere. And
Yeah,
to me, sorry,
it's real. Yeah,
yeah,
it's real.
and I'm just going, wait, so just the fear is driving people into spending thousands of dollars on themselves, saying, I don't want to get fired tomorrow. But and so 100% agree on that. I've seen patterns of that as well. I also find that as you kind of go down in this rabbit hole for building yourself and coming back 1 year, it's also maybe people who are pretending to be AI services or AI products. I think they're gonna, because they probably would not have found customers, or if they find the initial spike of customers, sooner or later there would be a equalizer where they would be quote unquote standard for what's expected from an AI capability perspective in an organization, from a product. Like at the moment, basic cybersecurity product, you kind of know what you expect. You expect it to do whatever the top 3 things are. We haven't defined that for AI security products today. And maybe because it's an evolving problem, but tomorrow when we do have that, to your point, that dip where suddenly all these people start going out to the market to buy a product to solve that problem because they thought they could solve it, they would start finding out what's the real value versus what's the inflated value service or offering that people have. Is it
Yeah.
enough for it?
Yeah.
I don't
There's
know. Do you agree?
a maturity model of our adoption and understanding of AI that allows us to refine the expectations that we have.
That's
Right.
right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
today, again, it's similar to, I'll just point to a cloud, which is in cloud. When cloud first, came out, everyone was just spinning up anything and everything all over the place. And then there was this whole cloud mess, right? If you
Yep.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Cloud sprawl. Yeah.
sprawl. Yes, the
Yeah.
cloud sprawl, because
Yeah.
everyone, and then like obviously clearly people figured out, hey, like we're more mature. It's not just about spinning crap up to spin it. We need to formalize it. We need to get pipelines. We need to pay attention to FinOps. We need
Yeah.
to understand these costs. And also cloud providers became way more advanced. They started seeing all of the random stuff companies spun up, and then they just built own versions of their services for those to just
Yeah.
use instead of
Yeah.
you having to build it yourself. And similar with AI, I guess, is if you make something easy and you make something accessible, you're going to see the sprawl. Everyone and their brother is going to be coding these prototype apps that probably don't work very well. And they're going to be everywhere all over the place. And you're going to get your AI sprawl, and then you're going to get your refinement, and then you're going to get your service providers offering the better versions of these. And then you're going to get a little good adjustment as to what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is we're talking about all of this when we don't have a compliance standard. Wait till the compliance standard comes out. Then there'll be vendors who are, let me help you get compliant with your AI applications.
Yeah.
CIS 1.2 or 3.1, whatever comes out, I guess.
Yes. It's, and if I could, stand on my soapbox, I will say AI compliance and security has been frustrating. It's been frustrating because I feel, for some reason, our industry, security people want to overcomplicate shit and overhype shit to a degree that is unhealthy for everything we do. Hey, in AI, we need to name 20 different AI attacks, when in reality, there aren't 20 different AI attacks, right? There are like 3, maybe, fundamentally different from each other. And like, oh, this is an MCP exploit. And you look at it and it's not an MCP exploit, right? And it's just like these kinds of things are damaging to our industry. I think it hurts and confuses defenders in our organizations. Like the fact that we overhype, overcomplicate, add new buzzwords and new acronyms for every single damn thing that comes out of the closet, like it just drives me insane.
I mean, isn't that the reason why we are all talking about agentic without being agentic?
Yeah, like it's just oh, we need agentic security. Ashish, can I just tell you something? And I'm gonna also rant a bit on me. So I'm a VC,
Yeah.
and I get startups pitching me all the time. The number one topic, of course, is agentic security, right? Oh, we're going to do security for AI agents. And all I do is I ask one simple question, which I say, okay, can you tell me an exact risk at which AI agents bring? And nobody can tell me an answer to this. They go all over that. They go very vague. Or like, oh, well, AI, we don't know how to control them. We don't know their identity. We don't know, we all are. I'm like, okay, tell me what that looks like. If I'm a CISO and
Yeah.
I'm looking at the product dashboard and you tell me, well, you don't know about the AI identity. What do I see as the critical risk in my life? Nobody can answer that. Nobody. And I'm talking like 10, 15 of these guys
Yeah.
who are, by the way, I might add, really smart founders, really smart entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
But it's just this hype bubble of I have to be an AI. I can get funding. I can get 10, 12, $30 million in funding just saying I'm an AI agent security
Yeah.
platform. This is bad. This is bad for our industry.
And I guess to your point, we'll raise the money, so we'll figure it out as we go, because that's what entrepreneurs
Yeah,
do.
we'll just figure it out. That's exactly right. Because when I ask, oh, well, we don't know yet, that it really comes down to we don't know yet. We're just going to learn. We need the
Yeah.
money to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this is exactly the whole, you ever, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. This is
Yeah.
that. This is what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you on this also, because this is confusing the industry for what they should be focusing on. And I'm not saying that the work people have done at CSA or WASP is not required. It is still required, but when it dilutes the water so much that we've gone away from the definition of AI, they've gone away from like the whole ROI conversation. To your point, why am I buying a cybersecurity product just because from a value add, all I get is like, I have something for AI security. I don't know what it is, but it definitely ticks the box.
It
It's
ticks a
within my
box.
budget.
It's AI security, and like I can talk buzzwords in it.
Yeah, 100%.
Get
And I
money.
think I've been, and I won't name CISOs here, but I think there've been a few people who I spoke to when I talk about, oh, what are you guys using from AI perspective? They all point at an AI product that they've bought, which is why I made a LinkedIn post yesterday about the AI tool becomes a strategy. That AI tool is the AI strategy, and I'm like, that's not your strategy. That's just a tool.
Yeah, but
And
they don't understand because number one, they don't know enough about AI or what the risks really are to develop a strategy on their own without a vendor telling them. And then
yeah,
number two, the vendor will pitch to them, this solves your problem. So
yeah,
therefore, that then becomes the checkbox to solve the problem.
yeah,
And like, the one thing I will say I'm proud of that I did in CSA, which is one thing we kept things very, very specific on is the approach we want in AI security is only to the enterprise and practical things. Practically speaking, how do you make decisions about the risk of an AI model, whether you should accept it or not accept it, right? Practically speaking, what are the actual risks you need to worry about from a threat perspective when you look at your is it SQL injection? No, because that's not AI. Is
yeah,
it prompt injection? Yes, it is. Is it data poisoning? Probably not. Would be but like, so you've got at least reasonable pragmatic decision points in CSA at which they've delivered and said these understand the technology first has been their
yeah.
approach, and then once you understand the technology, here are the pragmatic practical things that you need to worry about. I think we've done a really good job at that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why. I mean, kudos to both the work that CSA and OWASP was. I would not discredit that. I think where I'm going with this is definitely to what he was saying earlier. It's gotten diluted to the point that people have used it as a way to get funding without actual value being brought into the ecosystem. And maybe to your point, the bubble when it pops, all this devaluation or whatever you want to call it. Another prediction that I've been having, at least as more conversations that I've had, is that we would reach a point where, and I've felt signals of this in a lot of conversation, where every organization, the same way they build a cloud platform, there would be an AI platform that would be built for most organizations, where they would have a standard for security, they would have a standard for observability, auditability, they'll have a standard for all of these things. It would be really interesting if that platform ends up being a third party, or if it becomes a internal platform. My bet is on the money that it would be an internal platform, because you become the context or the knowledge source, and that provider or the product becomes the enabler with AI, if that makes sense. Because you may not have a data scientist in house, but they have a very specialized, let's just say, cloud security or AI security product that they worked on. Now you just augment your AI internal knowledge, context, and source, match that with what they have without giving them anything sensitive, that whole data conversation would just go out of the window. I think that's kind of where we're slowly moving towards. But on the final note for build and buy, do you feel today as it stands, obviously, I think I know the answer, but for people, for CISOs who are kind of still on that fence of, you know what, great listening to you guys, but my team is pretty awesome. So if they wanted to do that, we kind of spoke about the reality of it. Do you reckon this would change in the next few years? So people should keep an eye on it. Maybe today it's not possible. Or do you feel more like we're better off just focusing on building the AI talent in our organization, so that when, because the flip side of buying as well, you need to be able to understand these products when they come up. We'll still have to customize them. We'll still have to probably put some kind of a filter of Bank of America. I'm going to use that example, as people have done traditionally. That, hey, I get in a vendor, I put my Bank of America filter for, out of these 5, which according to the product it's all high. I personally think it's low because of the context I have from the inside. That part has always been custom, and maybe, I'm sorry, I'm saying a lot of things, but what I'm trying to get to is, today, the customization of the build part already happens, where I would have someone in my team or somewhere in the organization add that augmentation layer to an existing product. AI, non-AI doesn't really matter, because that product does not have the context for what's a low, high, or low, what's a low, medium, or high for me personally. I already do that customization today. My feeling is that's going to be the part that we as an organization would continue to augment with AI. The other side, which is the product side of, to your point, building a threat intel, building an AppSec, building a CloudSec, whatever the thing may be, that would continue to be perhaps a third-party supplier, unless the cloud providers or the native LLM providers become that cloud provider, like where you can build them natively. That's kind of where my thinking is going with build and buy. I don't know where if you were to look forward, where is that going?
I actually think that the part that you're talking about is the part at which AI is quite good at. And so what we're going to see is products out of the box replacing the part you're talking about, which is, I need the company context and the custom context of what makes my environment unique applied to the out of the box capabilities to make it relevant for me, which is today and in the past required humans, process, and tribal knowledge to be able to achieve. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, we have a company in detection engineering. Like, when you write a detection, right, however you do this, you need to understand the context of your company. You need to know, well, what's the difference between a dev environment versus a prod environment? What's the difference between a crown jewel versus not a crown jewel? What's the difference between an attack that's relevant on that system or in that environment versus not relevant to that system or environment? What's the context of whether even that attack is even important enough for us to spend the time and to create it so that it doesn't have false positives? Like, this requires a lot of tribal knowledge, a lot of people, a lot of knowledge internal to do that. That can all be absolutely automated today using AI.
Right. So to your point, what you defined is a process of finding out detection, and the I guess the people involved with it, which is the tribal knowledge. So that part can be automated.
Yeah. So I think out of the box, the thing that AI is going to add to a product is, when you install a SIEM now, today it requires people to understand, hey, well, once I ingest this data, you need to understand my risk profile, my threat model, what's important in my environment, what is relevant in one place versus another. All of that stuff is not required anymore. All the actual SIEM itself will then either ask or integrate and then determine these things for you. And you can just look at it and then confirm if you trust but validate. But you can just look at it and be like, that's right.
Interesting. Oh, I'm obviously, 100%. So you're saying that the third party itself would be able to do it. You don't have to do it.
The third party will be able to accomplish all the things that normally require you as a first party to do. So think about what AI provides is, like, if you think about today, there are only, if I want to be black and white, there are two situations. There is a fixed static solution that then is given to you, at which then you have to customize and personalize to make it your own, right? Like those are the two stages.
Yeah.
But now with AI, what AI allows you, and because that's just the way it was done, is the third party never had the knowledge to do this or the tech to
That's
do
right.
it.
Yeah.
But now every time you buy a vendor product,
Yeah.
AI is going to allow it to be personalized to you automatically, right? It becomes a personalized, customized version to you. And that's the magic part, that little sort of Venn diagram circle between these two, that I think is what AI provides value in, which is I can take a SIEM product.
Yeah.
I can now, when you get it delivered and set up, it automatically customizes it to you.
Yeah.
That's the part that I do think AI is quite good at.
Interesting. And I guess to your point, it depends on the fact that the organization allows for the data to be consumed by the third party as well.
Of course, which by the way applies to any product today.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So if you're comfortable, if you're doing this already in a third party today, whether it doesn't really matter cloud or not cloud, you probably would be okay to do this with your AI provider tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because the data and the access would not be any different to what it happens in the cloud world today.
Yeah, it's the only difference is that now the third party can quote unquote do much more amazing things with the data it already ingests.
Interesting. And so maybe forward thinking then. So what's the build component that is left for the future then?
I mean, obviously, there's always going to be build components. Again, I think it's less about standard sort of like things that are well known across. Like, for example, take the example I gave, which is a SIEM that's just customized to you, right?
Yeah.
That a SIEM is something needed by all companies, right? Like, quote unquote, all companies need a detection mechanism.
Yeah.
And then this is just now customized you. Versus, let's take our Bank of America example. Bank of America probably has very custom, unique problem spaces in their area that only they have. Like a great example might be they built custom applications to have their employees have the ability to query, look up, or manage customers. These are probably internal applications that are very complicated. Who makes, now in the detection world, who makes the ability to have the right controls, the right detections on that piece of software and where they are? Then you probably have some more customized things you've got to go and figure out. Right.
I think you made me think of something really interesting as well. In terms of, how DevSecOps kind of, and this is probably my final point on this as well. DevSecOps was like an afterthought because we didn't have a capability because we never included security in DevOps, which is why it led to the whole DevSecOps thing, because security is important, but DevOps by default already had security to begin with. All the AI capability that a lot of organizations are building, and the thinking here is, to what you said, if your SIEM or whatever security product you use is very personalized to you, and the augmentation that you're doing is the customer application, which most people have a lot of them, like 100, 200, whatever. I just use the Bank of America example again. It's not one or two products. They'll have hundreds of custom applications that they're running internally that requires their own, like whoever, Ashish, the detection engineer, or Ashish, security engineer, has to know the context and apply the right kind of filters on this personalized tool to get that value. I think where it would be really interesting is that if the engineering people catch up on this and they start including security as default in their version of how they do build application, where we come back to the DevOps cycle where, hey, I mean,
this goes back to our original topic of this episode, which is, secure coding as an example. If you are using Claude Code, there is a /security that automatically does security detection, vulnerability issues if you use Claude Code. Obviously, now if you use Google Gemini's
DeepMind,
by DeepMind, it automatically does this for you. Yeah, for sure. And like, I do believe the future of AI coding to some degree, as again, making the assumption that we continue to progress the level at which we progress that it does become a black box, right? Like at the end of the day, going through and actually writing lines of code becomes a more specialist skill than a general skill. So things like unit testing, security testing, and validation, all of this is just built into the template of how to write proper code. And that's, by the way it should be. Like that is 100%. That absolutely is the way it should be.
Yeah. And I think maybe a lot of us will just continue working on the non-AI pieces as the AI continues to evolve into this black box, which has security by default, is fully automated, evolves on its own, but food for thought for people who are listening and watching this. But I definitely agree with you, man. I think there's definitely patterns where maybe we just finally have that full circle moment in the next few years where security is part of default and we're just building for custom applications. But for people who are tuning in, definitely let us know what do you think if that's for the future you believe in as well. Drop it as a comment. It doesn't really matter where you are. You should still be able to drop a comment in Spotify as well. But thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for watching or listening to that episode of AI Security Podcast. This was brought to you by techriot.io. If you want to hear or watch more episodes of AI Security, check that out on aisecuritypodcast.com. And in case you're interested in learning more about cloud security, you should check out a sister podcast called Cloud Security Podcast, which is available on cloudsecuritypodcast.tv. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.